Kudo Bima Wufinu Metole. Greetings to all Africans. That is in the Aja foreign language. We are His Imperial Majesty Ahosu Agelo Bagan Aja Zinpotin Jisovi Agboli the First. We are the one who Aja Zinpotin, one who traveled great distance to bring back the crown. That's what that means. It's one of our titles, names, so to speak. Ahosu means king. So many people are familiar with the Yoruba culture and not the Aja culture. So the Ahosu is like Oba. So that being said, we want to give this brief talk on reclaiming your identity through African oracular systems, and in this particular case, through the Ifa system that we call Ipile Fa. Ipile Fa comes from Ipile comes from Ipileshe, and that is a Yoruba word for foundations. Ipileshe Fa or Ipile Fa is your foundations according to Fa. It implies that you are seeking your original African identity through the ancient and unbiased oracle of Ifa. There's a verse, a sacred verse in one of the sacred 256 chapters of the Odu Ifa, Ofun Owanrin, and it talks about Ipileshe, and it talks about Ileke, right? Not Ileke beads, but Ileke. And it says, what is Ileke without Ipileshe? Ipileshe. Ileke means a building, right? Something that goes up. Ipileshe is foundation. Now, we are that building. But what are we that, we are that Ileke. How can we be a true Ileke, a true building, if we don't have a foundation? We're sure to fall, and we're seeing the results of it with all of these false claims of certain ancestry that African people are just jumping and doing, you know. It's ridiculous, you know, and it shows you the verse is true. You know, you want to be Eleke, but you don't have Ipileshe, right? So it is through the Ipilefa that we learn who we are in truth. This system was developed in the 70s off of a more ancient system, and that's what gives it its validity. It was based on the Esintaye, partly on the Esintaye divination. Esintaye means to put the foot in the world in the Yoruba language, right? And so what you're doing, what happens is, one reason it's called that, because when a priest, and we use the word term priest gender neutral, and not in the dissexual way, but priest, male or female, priest. The child is born, and after 7 to 9 days, according to the particular custom, their foot is placed on the Opani Fa. The Opani Fa is this round board, maybe measuring, some are big, some are small. The average one we'll say is about 15 inches across. It's circular, and that's where the divination marks are done for the child. And the child, and what is done, they see what is this child's proclivities. What side of the family does he descend from? He or she descends from. What deity should he worship or she worship based on previous said statement? What clan does this child come from? Because these are very important things to know from an African cultural perspective to move with that less, with how we want to say it, less drag in life, less resistance, you know. Meaning there will be resistance, there will be problems. But when we have these divinations done, we have a better idea of what to do when they show up. And so that's a bit about the ancient Esintaye ceremony. And we move forward to the 70s when the Africans that rediscovered our traditions, because they were never lost. We always say, you know, we lost our traditions. No, we didn't. If we wouldn't be sitting here dressed as this. We wouldn't have a legal African name right now if we had actually lost the tradition. So the freedom fighters, the cultural nationalists that got this thing underway in the 70s, built on top of the Esentai with Ipile Fa, or sometimes it's called Oro Ipile. You know, Oro means word in Yoruba. And this is a specific system designed for the New African. For those watching this that's not familiar with our videos and not familiar with the concept of a New African, that is a political ideology based on our geographical and historical circumstances of being descendants from those Africans that were put into captivity. Those of us in the Americas and in Europe and whatever other places that this applies to. So it was tailored for the New African because we didn't know who we were. All we knew we were African. So what did we do in the roots reading? How was it tailored? So just like in the Esentai, you find out what side of the family you come from, what clan you come from. We go further. Because we have to go further. We have to find out the clan name, the clan deity, the family name, the family deity, when, assuming, since this seems to be at least 98% of the case, when did your people get put into captivity? The specific year. This is what the Oracle tells us. Where did they come from? You know, when the DNA tests are correct, they tell you where, an area where you come from. But no, exactly where you come from, and what was the ethnic group of your people. Very important things, especially the names. We find out what they were doing in Mahufe, that's an Ajah term for Africa, before they were put into captivity. What the circumstances of them being put into captivity. That's very important to know, because a lot of family curses and the intergenerational curses are connected to this. For instance, we have some people we've done roots readings for, and it's stated that, you know, this particular ancestor was, or maybe a group of them, involved in some very negative witchcraft, negative magic. And then they were eventually sold into captivity, either for that reason or some other reason. That debt, that spiritual debt that they created with that negativity, still has to be dealt with. Because it has not been dealt with, you know, people that descend from this person often deal with these particular issues, such as broken relationships. Broken relationships, you know, relationships not being able to be positive alone is one of the biggest things when we deal with something with negative energy, you know. But that's just an example. There are many things. It's very important for people to get roots readings, especially when they are a couple. Each person gets a root reading because they need to know how their ancestors come together. What kind of ancestors are coming together? Because a lot of these ancestors are in that other realm and they're still bitter. They're still mad because of a war that was going on, let's say, from 1732, as in the case of Dahomey and Oyo Yoruba, up until the early 1800s. You know, it's almost 100 years. So a lot of these people don't like each other, even in that other realm, right? We always say in this tradition that the earth, the world is like a calabash, and they mirror each other, two halves of a calabash, and they mirror each other. What's happening here is happening over in the other realm that many people call Orun, or heaven, right? So they still have a lot. Many of them haven't elevated beyond that particular hurt they've experienced. Some of them were sold. Let's say a Yoruba person and a Fon person get together, right? And this person that is Yoruba, finding out through his roots reading, he's Yoruba, his wife is Fon. He has a lot of Yoruba ancestry, and they do not agree with this situation. And come to find out, when we do further ancestral reading, this particular group of ancestors, they were captured and sold by the Fon people of Dahomey, right? And the others that didn't get sold were tortured and killed, right? So all of that has to be reconciled. And so we're entering into relationships and marriages without having this knowledge. And we wonder why the African family, the so-called black family, is the way it is. So with the roots reading, we learn how to appease these ancestors, how to elevate them, how to, if we need to, quiet them for a while. Sometimes these ancestors and the deities in the oracle will say that this marriage is not legit. You know, it shouldn't even be. And that's another thing. That's in what we call a relationship reading. But the ancestors speak in that reading. So, but it's very important for families to get these roots reading because they can understand what has happened, what is happening, and then what to do now going forward. Roots reading is one of the most powerful readings you could ever get. Out of all the readings, all the accolades we've gotten, that we have achieved the level of His Imperial Majesty, the biggest thing that we have achieved is getting our ancestral readings, and in particular, our roots reading. That's the thing that is the most important thing that has happened to us. Because now we know who we are. We are from the Gisovi family, from the Agbavi clan. We are from the house of Welang Bosu, which is was started as a noble house in the European year of 1291, and then became a royal house about 32 years later after that. You know, all of this we only were able to find through the roots reading. This has been confirmed by people from Dahomey that we still meet to this day, that know the name, that know about our ancestor Sakbaju, who was sold into captivity in 1823, and brought to the evil shores of Mobile, Alabama. So this is who we are. A roots reading is who we are. We find out exactly who we are. We find out the family totem, the totem of the clan. That's very good to know because you have that symbol that represents your family. And that totem could be something from nature, could be an animal, various things. Sword made a certain way or whatever, you know. But that is very, very, very important. We find out in roots readings the occupations of the families when they were before captivity. And we also find out after captivity, once they landed on the evil shores of the Americas and Europe, we find out what they did then after that. You know, oftentimes many of these ancestors continue to do what they did in the pre-captivity days, you know, for various reasons. And this is sometimes based on the fact that the captor, or the so-called slave master, may have picked up on, you know, a particular skill or whatever that this particular African captive had, and exploited that as they do to this day. So you learn out if your family were from a royal family, a noble family, a fisher people family, did they work the salt mines of what is now southern Benin and Togo? Were they salt traders? Did they raise fish, a particular kind of seafood? And let's back up on this, because everybody wants to be royal. Everybody wants to be royal. We've done readings for people, just pull one out the blue, where the particular trade they were in was very important to the monarchy, right? And so they were very wealthy. They weren't royals, but they were very wealthy because of it, especially like the salt traders in southern, they had salt marshes. They still do in southern Benin. Of course, it wasn't Benin at that time. Many of these people were more wealthy than the king or the queen. And you see examples of that in European history, where you have these large manors or these estates of these noblemen, not royal, but because they were merchants or something like that. They control certain things. The king had to play it safe with them. You know, they often literally, so far as their net worth, their particular worth, they were worth more monetarily than the king. So we saying all that to say, don't get caught up, if you get a reading, don't get caught up in wanting to be royal. Everybody, African people need to stop it. We all kings and queens. We all gods and goddesses. No, we're not. No, we're not. No, we're not. And there's nothing wrong with coming from a family of fishermen who supplied villages as far off as you in southern Dahomey, which is now southern Benin, and you're supplying a particular kind of fish all the way to oil, right? You're a farmer, though. And farmers did that kind of stuff in Africa also. So, you know, you're supplying this fish to everybody, even the monarchy, versus you being a prince who, let's just say a prince that wasn't doing anything. Which one you rather be? What name did you leave? You left a name as a fisherman, but if you want to trade that in just to say you are royal, but then let's look at the history of this royal. He didn't do anything. He just was a royal. So we have to keep that in mind, you know. So our website, restorationhealing.com, and the name of the site is Quilombo Restoration and Healing. You find out information about our books and our publications. Our monarchy is GanLodo.kingdom.com. That's GANLODO kingdom.com. We can be reached at ekaabokilombo at gmail.com. That's EKAABOKILOMBO at Gmail. Once again, that's EKAABOKILOMBO at gmail.com. One reason we made this video, because we're seeing a lot of people who are going towards the DNA testing. The DNA testing is messing them up, confusing them even more. We've seen videos of people from the continent that know their ethnic group, and the DNA test come back and tell them that they're not Igbo when they know they grew up in an Igbo family, you know, and they've been Igbo forever, you know. Then you have those that dispute the DNA testing, that don't want no DNA testing, which is good, but they don't know what else to do. So we exist, you know, for our people to return them back to their roots by proper knowledge that only the spirit world can give us, proper history that only the Ifa Oracle can give us. So this is why we made this video, so that you can know that there's an alternative. It's up to you after this what you do. Briefly, there's also a reading that you can kind of call a complement to the roots reading. It's called the Jotar Fa, or finding the Jotar out through Fa. And the Jotar is the sponsoring ancestor. That is strictly from the Vodun of southern Benin and Togo perspective. This has nothing to do with the Yoruba, but the Fa Oracle is still used. And this is the ancestor that's most invested in your well-being for various reasons. For your well-being, but also a lot of times they have unfinished business that they have chosen you to do. The Jotar is 100% of the time the gender of the person that's getting the reading. So we don't do, you know, that other stuff these religions do with saying you can reincarnate as a man, and if you were a woman in a previous lifetime, you were a man in this lifetime. You were a cricket in another lifetime, like that Buddhist and Greek stuff teaches, and the Hindu stuff teaches. We have sound philosophy with our culture. So that being said, John Talk 5, that is another one. Once again, you have the contact information, GunlodoKingdom.com, RestorationHealing.com, to further look at our publications. Our most exciting work we've put out in past years is called the Quilombo Paradigm, Maroon Sovereignty Through Vodun Culture. That's the subtitle. And the title says, not all, but says a lot about what that book is about. It's 340 pages with a plan to go towards building intergenerationally to build sovereignty through our culture, based in our real culture. Not no idealistic, all Africans need to unite type of thing. We have narrowed this thing down to culture. Culture is the mandate. That is the only thing that will save us. Other than that, we're going to have a bunch of Facebook groups, a bunch of Black Power rallies that end up resulting in the same feel-good stuff that you were doing when you were in the Christian church. Because a few hours after that feel-good sermon, you're back to the drawing board. You're back to, in a lot of cases, degenerate behavior. So the Quilombo Paradigm, which is the paradigm that we follow at the Maroon Monarchy of Gunlodo, is a system. It's a sound system. Look for that book when you go to the website. We hope that you've gotten a lot from this. We have been His Imperial Majesty, Ahosu Oghelo Bagana Agbovi I, and we pray that all of you all have many, many days of Black power, African power, and African love. Odipa.